Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Okay,
Hey, am I on? Am I live?
you're live.
Fantastic. And I'm coming to you from a hotel room here in no, somewhere in Colorado. I've spent the day skiing, so I'm completely like refreshed and ready to talk to you about some hidden gems in every conversation. So thank you, Matt, my dear old friend Matt over there, for the invitation, and Ken as well for this opportunity to speak to you all today. And as Ken mentioned, this isn't designed to be like a TED talk. This is more of a conversation. And what's really fascinating is, we all struggle with getting our message across. We all think we're pretty good listeners, and we also believe that if we want to influence action, it's all down to what we say. And so I'm here this evening as representing the collaborative way, which is an intentional, called out way of working together, like a systematic way of communicating. Because regardless of what type of company you're in, large or small, there's so many conversations that fall through the cracks every day. And so this is a particularly powerful topic, and I hope you're going to jump in. Anybody ever felt like this, where you've just asked somebody their name and you forgot what their name was, even before they finished speaking? And I'm sure on that
Excellent.
conference this weekend, you met lots of people that their name went in one ear and out the other.
I
And so
tried my best to remember everybody.
it's really difficult. So, and I'm gonna hopefully give you some tools and techniques and ways to address this evening to find that hidden gem or hidden potential in every conversation. And just
I just rely on everyone's name being in the bottom right nowadays. So
bottom right, yeah, absolutely, yeah, or a tag or something, yeah. And hopefully they're not on their partner's machine. So I want to ask a question of you, and you can pop it in the chat. How present were you during this past 20 to 30 minutes since Ken started? And Ken kept it very engaging and very interesting. I must admit I was expecting it to be a little more boring, but it wasn't because he's a chaos monkey. But he kept us on our toes. But how many of you were present, A, B, C, or D? What do you think? How much of the content did you get? Do you think it was about 100% of it, or maybe B, most of it, C, or D?
Who's saying say?
Half the time. Who's saying C? Are you checking up here, Ken?
We're keeping names here.
This
So
is not part of your credit. Don't worry. Don't worry. So let me see. I can't see the chat yet. So let's see what people are saying. B, 80%. Goodness. Yeah, you guys are D. Thank you there, John, for being honest. C. And so the interesting thing, and this is more to do with how we generally listen. Like if I asked you who's the two speakers at the conference coming up, how many would be able to actually tell me what Ken said? We have this perception that we're hearing words, but most of the time we're ignorant of what's actually taking place. And so this is an interesting study by a Harvard psychologist, Killingworth and Gilbert. We spend about half the time, 46.7% of waking time, thinking about something else than what we're doing. What do you think about that? So you might be on the call, you're hearing noises and sounds, but how much are you comprehending? How much are you deeply listening? And, we often listen for certain things that we're looking for or that we're interested in. It's known as attentive listening. Um, it's a little better than the stingy listening we'll talk about later or the ignorant. But it's certainly not generous listening. And what I'm going to talk about this evening is really some of the gems. I'm going to focus on the practice around listening generously, because I think focusing deeply on one of the practices will help you in your personal life and professional life. In fact, in the next 30 minutes, I I'm not doing my job well if you're not able to do something better by the end of this 30 minutes. That's my promise to you. And so I'm really going to check in with you at the end. What are you going to take away from this? What are you going to put in place? Because, when I ask a leadership team, how effective are you at communication, on a scale of from effective to ineffective. Most people, think that they're pretty good communicators. They think they're good listeners. And so, but if when I ask, well, how much time have you spent in the past week deliberately practicing listening? Often the answer is zero because we don't know, we don't even practice it in schools. And so we believe that we're listening, but like the question, if I was to ask you in any detail what Ken shared in different points, how much would have already passed through your consciousness and you've forgotten it now at this stage? So, the point being, we are missing lots, we're leaving lots on the table. And this applies to your colleagues as well as to your clients. You're, when clients feel heard, they stick with you. So it's one of those life skills that's going to impact all of your life. So I hope this evening will be very, very helpful for you. And so, you know, this is just from Heart Math in California. Heart Math, M-A-T-H, not M-A-T-T, M-A-T-H, Heart Math. Forgive my Irish accent. My vowels might be a little hard for the East Coasters to understand. But so energetic communication from HeartMath, 70% of workplace mistakes can be traced back to problems in communication. And what's more scary is the 3,000 serious medical incidences found that 2/3 of them had a root cause in miscommunication. So there's lots of conversations happening all the time. Let's face it, we're all communicating and having conversations all the time. And when we really look at how a culture becomes effective in an organization, it is down to how you build trust, respect, and effective collaboration. That's how you create a thriving culture, effective collaboration. It shapes the work environment and it also leads, which determines results. So we can't ignore this. We can't ignore that everything that is moved into action is happening with communication. We're shaping our culture through our communications every day. Now, most leaders we work with are not aware of how to powerfully influence the culture. How do they shape the culture? How do they even know what their culture is revealing? And at the collaborative way, what we really, have brought forward over the last 30 years um, was that your culture is revealed in every conversation. Every conversation is an opportunity for you to build trust or erode trust, to move towards what your objective is, you're up to, your vision, your mission. Each conversation you're having is either moving toward that or away from it. And how do you, support, create the environment for this to happen in your whole organization? Most people are at a loss. They think, oh, I'm doing a good job here as a leader. And yet your responsibility is how is all those conversations that are happening in your organization that maybe there's 5, maybe there's 10, maybe there's 50. Some of our clients there's literally millions of conversations happening. So if you're looking to powerfully drive culture, and that can be in a family as well as in an organization of thousands of people, if you're looking, you really do need to have a proven methodology or framework to do it, plus deliberate practice. We don't deliberately practice communication every day. Instead, we go into silos. We have, particular mindsets around blame. We blame each other. We get competitive, and we're often at odds with each other. And so, you know, this is the collective behaviors that are going on in your organization or in your workplace or in your school or team. It's creating roadblocks to collaboration and creativity, and that only leads to disappointment. And so today's session, I'm hoping that you will see the power of having that proven way of working together. Incidentally, the collaborative way was founded 32 years ago by Lloyd Fickett. And when he was working with a company in Delaware called Rodell, they were making the little wafers, and I'm sure you guys are a lot more technical than I, that they stacked the wafers to basically make the technology that allows us to use these devices today. And at the time, they knew the competition was going to come in strong, from the 3Ms and the Cabots and people like that. And the leaders had enough vision to know that they couldn't succeed by the old way of trying to improve slowly and help leaders get better. And so this called out way of working together was actually put into practice at Rodell. It was initially called the Rodell way, and that was the first client it was used with. You know, down the road, they ended up, you know, really moving ahead of the competition. The big players couldn't compete with them because when you have a called out way, a proven way to work together, you can create extraordinary results. Very often we support individual leadership training. We don't work on collective, how we're going to work together as a team. And so, you know, when you create a culture in this way and create a practice of shared behaviors and attitudes, that leads to a nurturing environment. So, you know, it's really important, whether it be in a conversation, in each conversation, you know, if it's an important conversation, call out what you're up to, that you actually know what the conversation's about. It might be on a project, it might be on a wider team, it could be, you know, the mission of the company. What are we up to? Call it out so that we are all engaged and we know what we're actually doing in that conversation. That will give you power to practice these 5 elements. This evening, I'm going to go into listening generously in a little more depth. These are robust practices that really take a lifetime to master. You know, some people on this call probably think I'm a great listener. And you know, if I was to ask you how many of you have a good listener as a friend, or how many friends are good listeners, I guarantee there's probably less than 5 people in your life that are good listeners. So my invitation for you this evening is, why not take on the challenge of being an exceptional listener? What would that look like? What would your partner say if you were suddenly practicing being an exceptional listener? It's very rare, and it's rare for companies to take this on deliberately. And so, you know, the listening generously element, you know, my colleague Philip is on the call this evening as well, and we chatted about this, and we thought, wow, why not give these guys an experience of what we're talking about here? So rather than tell you, because at this stage, you're probably missing half of what I'm saying anyway. So let's have an experience of what we call distracted or stingy listening versus generous listening. You know, I'm sure you've all been in meetings like this where, you know, you're sensing that they're tuning out, they're checking out. And look, there is a part of the brain that needs to rest and goes into a default mode. It follows a rhythm. We go into focus and then we go into default. And when we're interrupted, incidentally, it takes us another 25 minutes to get back into focus. And, you know, for you guys that are at your machines all day, and unless you're at a conference of some sort, you know, that can be very difficult where, you know, maybe you are communicating a lot online. Maybe you have back-to-back meetings. You know, on an ECG, wearing an ECG cap is demonstrated the level of stress in your body after back-to-back meetings. So you're missing a lot of important information that's left on the table. So you know, I want to describe what stingy listening is before we get into the practice of it. And we're going to use the breakout rooms for this. But before we do, stingy listening, I want to give you an example. You know, when you're maybe a Friday afternoon and the boss calls you into the office and we want that meeting, you know, that meeting where you feel like, oh, here we go again. And I don't know if that's a reality for any of you. It mightn't be a Friday afternoon, it could be any time of the week. And it might be, you know, what's going to show up in your body language? What's going to show up in your tone, in your facial expression? I want to hear from you. Some of you, please.
You guys can take yourself off mute if you want to talk.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Love to hear from you.
Okay, thanks. It's usually, it really depends on how much work I'm thinking I still have to get done, and I really want to know what you would need me to do. but
Yes.
I really want to make sure that I'm getting the projects finished that need to be done in time. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that's just my honest.
So what's your listening like going on in the meeting, Donna?
It's gone dreadful.
It's dreadful.
Dread.
Correct. So your mind is, it mightn't even be 50% there. Your body language or your facial expressions, what's going to be your physical appearance, Donna?
I'm sure my brow is frowning and trying desperately not to, and
Yeah,
just on I know that I'm stressing out over a deadline, but really want to, making a good impression with it, with boss or professor or
beautiful.
wherever I am.
Absolutely. And so we all know what it feels like to be in a meeting where we don't really want to be there. And our body is giving out that message as well. And thank you, Stephen. Eyebrows raised, deep breath, you're probably slouching, looking at your phone, you're distracted. So, that's what I would regard as stingy listening.
Mm.
It's distracted listening. Okay. Everybody clear on what I mean by that? Okay. And this photograph shows what it looks like. He's and basically everyone is feeling the impact of that. Okay, on the other side of the spectrum, we have generous listening. Okay, so the same boss says to you, Donna, hey, we've had a great quarter, Donna. I want to have a quick catch up and we're going to talk about bonuses. And have you got 5 minutes?
Brilliant. Yes, let's do
Well,
it.
so now you get the experience. You'd certainly be showing in your face, you know,
Yeah,
expectation, attentiveness and smiling possibly, and your body language will be leaning forward, all of that. Okay, we're
yeah,
all very, very familiar with this. Now, what we're not as aware of is that every day in our conversations, we're operating on a spectrum of
yeah.
stingy to generous. And, it's not a constant. So we're moving from one to the other. So that's essentially what we're going to do here. So Ken and I have discussed this, and we're going to go into pairs in rooms. Now, what I want you to think about first is think about something that you are passionate about. Anything. It could be a hobby, it could be a family, it could be your family, your kids, it could be a sport, it could be computers or gaming or whatever you want to make it about, okay? So whatever you're passionate about that you can speak for about a minute on. All right. Everybody clear on that? Okay. And so when we put you in the breakout rooms, I want you to decide who's going to be A and who's going to be B. So one way to maybe do this is whoever has got the hairiest eyebrows is A, and whoever is the other person is B. Okay, that might be just an easy way of deciding. Okay. And so when you go into the room, and we're going to mind the time, so you don't have to worry about the time, but we'll give you time. A, I want you to share what you're really passionate about. Okay, and keep talking. And B, your job in this situation is to provide stingy listening to A. So be distracted, typing on your phone, looking elsewhere. Basically what we do when somebody is talking to us and we're still working away on our computer or doing something else, or your kid is trying to get your attention and you're busy doing something else. So we're going to provide stingy listening to A. Now, A, you keep speaking about what you're passionate about, and B, while B is providing the stingy or closed listening. Okay, until you're brought back into the main room. Is that all right?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
sounds good. Everybody clear on that? I'm going to pick on somebody just to ask them to replicate what I said. So, John, could you replicate? Thanks,
Yeah,
John.
sure.
What's
Yeah,
the,
sure. No problem. So you basically want A and B. A is going to be the person who's talking. B is going to be the stingy listener for that particular for this particular time slot. And A is going to talk about something that they, want to pick about, if it's something family or sports related or just general conversation about something they're passionate about or they have interest in. And they're going to talk to person B, and person B is basically going to be not paying attention.
yeah, and
Stingy.
beautifully replicated there. Thank you, John. You were
Welcome.
on the ball there. And so, Ken, we're going to put them into a breakout room now, and we're going to give them 1 minute and then bring them back into the main room again. Is that okay?
Yep, I'm gonna do it right now.
In pairs. Decide
Yep.
who's A and B, and off you go. It's better if you're on camera when you're doing this exercise. Thanks, mate.
Paging, WestJet representative. Please report to Terminal B Level 3 ticket counter for passenger assistance.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
WestJet representative.
Can you hear me?
Please report to Terminal B Level 3 ticket counter for passenger assistance.
I don't know if I'm gonna come.
Yes.
Are they all getting fished out there, Ken?
I think so, but I don't think everybody's in a group. Hold on one second. Let me just see what's going on here. Everybody's been assigned to a group.
Okay. There's a few people still sort of moving and shifting.
Yeah, I think the woman who was complaining, she's in the airport. She may not have noticed that she was assigned to a room.
Ah.
Okay, and the other people that are here are opting out.
Oh, you can opt out.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
I actually showed up in a room, but there was nobody else there. So
oh,
I
I
came
can
back.
put some. Okay, hold on a second.
Sure.
Who was that?
Serenity.
Serenity. Sorry. Okay, so hold
okay.
on.
Thanks, Serenity.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. There's a lot of people who didn't join. This is really hard for me to see who's. Huh. Oh wait, I can see. Here we go.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Sure. Is there anybody else who wanted to be in a room who didn't get to be in a room, who found out there was nobody in it?
Hi, I just joined. Could you please put me in somebody's room? Sorry for that. I just delayed.
No, who is it? Who? Sorry, I can't see who's speaking. Who's
That's
speaking?
Malvika.
Oh,
Yes,
Malvika. Okay, hold on one second.
sorry about that.
Hey, Ken, I went into a room and it was empty.
Right. Okay, so you just gotta tell me because not everybody's participating. So hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I took care of Malvika.
Are they on a timer, Ken, before they all come back?
No, I didn't set it up, but I can end it at any time. So,
There's probably enough people that have done it that we can have a good conversation.
all right. So I'll just end it now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hey, there was no one in my room.
Yeah. So some people had nobody in the room, unfortunately.
That's okay. That's no problem.
I had a very stingy listener. It was me. So
Well, this was just like talking to my ex-wife.
Wait, there's still people in the room. Hold on. They'll give it. It's on a timer now for 15 seconds. Just hold on 15 seconds. We'll get everybody back.
No
Okay.
problem. We'll have enough experience, I hope,
Okay.
to make it worthwhile.
All right, they're all coming back now. Okay.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I think there's a few more just dropping in, and I know some people had joined late, so that might be part of it as well. Hey, yes. Okay, let me hear from you. How was that experience? For the people sharing their story, what was your experience of that exercise? Beth, do you want to share?
I was trying very hard to be stingy, but I caught most of what John said. I think by the nature of my work, I'm usually in a meeting and I have to answer emails, have to answer chats, have to deal with emergencies.
Yes. Yes.
I heard most of what he said, and I was texting my son. I was drinking coffee. I was drinking water. I was trying really hard to be distracted.
The reason was because I was screaming at the top of my lungs this way, no matter what, she had to hear me. So that's
Right.
probably why.
John, how was it for you with Beth being, a little
Um,
stingy?
it was actually it was fine because because we knew what the exercise was. It for me, I chose the subject of baseball. Today's opening day. I'm a very big Phillies fan here in Central Jersey.
Which
So
is a real thing.
which is a real thing. Thank you. Anyway, the point is I'm a huge
Doesn't
baseball fan.
exist.
So today's opening day, and I was talking about that, and I was just talking about how the Phillies are playing, right now, and it's bottom of the ninth,
Yeah,
whole
but the
thing.
Phillies instead of the Mets. I mean, seriously.
All right.
So
Okay,
anyway,
so
it was good. So I saw her in the, I'm watching her, and she was really trying to be distracted and stingy. And she was doing a very good job, I thought. But then when she came back, she was, I finished. She was very honest. It was like, I tried real hard, but I heard that you said you're a Philly. She kind of reiterated
yes.
what I was talking about. So it was interesting. It was a very interesting exercise.
And to your point, John, we do pick up sound bites. And the fact that we were making this a very deliberate exercise, you became very conscious that you weren't listening or that it was so hard to be so stingy in our listening. It's not something we're trying to do. So, did anybody find that it was really infuriating to have someone that wasn't listening to them?
I was trying to be infuriating. I was
Yes.
texting my son,
Yes.
how much more
And
infuriating can you be? It's
but
texting.
you were B, Beth. Was there any A's that were trying to share their story and feeling not heard?
Maybe just at a few points, but overall it was, I guess what I was saying caught her attention. So she kind of, you could tell eye contact and you could tell she's listening, and then head nodding, movements like that. But certain points you could tell distracted, like looking away, looking at something, grabbing something. But overall, it didn't seem like they were too distracted.
Yeah. It's difficult to do this, but yet think about how many times in your normal day that you are trying to do multiple things and you're not actually present to what's going on. We're picking up, half the truth, we're picking up half the facts, and we're often, writing an email while on a Zoom call or checking our phones or, you know, feeding the baby or whatever it might be. Sure, is it Charisse?
Yeah.
How was it for you?
So I was B, and Craig's subject matter was of absolutely no interest to me, but I felt guilty ignoring him. So
Yes.
I was listening probably too much. But the two things that come to mind in this discussion are number one, I work mostly from home. And so I have days where I'm on Zoom or Teams from 8:30 in the morning till 5:30. And by the end of the day, all I've been doing is listening and I'm exhausted.
That's
And
right.
number two is that we're at the point with all of these ways to reach people that while I'm on these meetings, there are people messaging me in 5 other places that I have to answer. And so I'm having trouble paying attention to the meeting I'm on because I'm doing 5 other things.
Yes. Which is, and at the end of the day, you're probably picking up half of what's been said. This is where we overestimate what we actually can do. Our brain is literally, mush by the end of the day, as you know, because it's pretty limited real estate here. And, even when we are deliberate, you could see it has an impact. The point I want to make here is that your listening has an impact on what is being shared. Okay. Now, Ken, do you think it would be possible to put the same people back in the same room again, or are you up for that?
Oh, I don't think we could do that.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that because I don't want to like stress Ken out completely. But what happens when we start to hold back on our listening? when you're conscious of it, it's awkward. It feels awkward. You feel guilty. You feel bad. You know, and despite your best efforts, Beth, you're still picking up a few things, but we have what's known as attention blinks that's happening in every conversation. And we literally, our brain is very clever and it joins the dots so that you have the perception of having a continuous conversation and that you're not missing anything. However, as the studies are showing, you're missing probably half of what is being said. And so when it comes to conversations, and if we had more time and we had the opportunity to dig back into it again and go back into the room again and practice generous listening this time, you would
Oh,
see.
we might be able to do it. Actually, I'll take that back. I think we can do the reverse.
Are you
Okay, so
sure?
yeah, I think I can do it. Okay.
Okay.
It won't be 100% because people have dropped, but it'll be close.
Okay, we're going to give it a go this time I want you to go back into the room and the same persons share their story again, the same story. This time, B is going to provide generous listening. So generous listening, Charisse, what is generous listening?
I'm going to be paying full attention, not
Attention.
distracted, not doing other things.
Yes.
I'll
You're going
make
to
it
give them
easy.
your full available attention and be very coherent and clear about it. Beth, you can do this to the best of your ability. I know you're good at it. So we're going to push you back into a room, even if it's not the same person, because I do doubt if everyone's going to end up in the same room again.
Yeah.
But I want you to now practice generous listening to see if it makes a difference. Okay? Off you go, Ken.
There we go.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hey, Angeline.
Hi, Mario.
No, it's Declan here.
Oh, I see Mario too.
You should have been moved into another room. Hold on a second.
The closing doors, please, for me.
Declan, can I ask you a question?
Of course, Jürgen.
So, what do you think about this issue where you're in a conversation and you sort of have an idea of what the other person's talking about, so
Yeah.
you formulate an opinion of what they're going to present, and so what you're listening for is the things that are different from your assumptions that you've made.
Yes, that is. Well, let me address that when everybody comes back into the room, Jürgen. It's a great point. I want to bring it to everyone. Is that okay?
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you for bringing it up. So just a minute, Ken, as well again.
This is 219th Street. This is a Wakefield bound 2 train. The next stop is 225th Street.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Close the door.
Dad, you didn't get into a room again.
No, once again, I got there and then there was no one there. I waited for a little while and no one showed up. So, yep.
I had the same thing.
No problem.
Declan, I just want to tell you, Ireland's my favorite place in the world.
Even more than New Jersey and Central Jersey? Wow. Thank you. Have you been there, Charisse?
I've been there once and I pray I get back there.
From the East Coast, it's an
I
easy.
was on the West Coast. I was in Galway and Connemara.
This
I
is
went to
226th Street.
Roundstone.
Lovely, beautiful. Okay, have we everyone back, Ken?
I think we're back.
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody's back. Everybody's back.
Right. Let me hear from how was that experience? Either raise your hand so we can, so we don't all talk on top of each other. How was the experience of being generously listened to?
The next stop is 233rd Street.
She's getting close to her stop. Okay.
Great, I'm very happy. Oh, we're almost home. That's so good. So, how was that experience of being generously listened to? I want to hear from a couple of the A's. Ed, thank you.
So first of all, I didn't have someone in my first breakout room, so I didn't get to experience the stingy one. But for like the kind of generous listening, the person in the room with me, they were asking me questions about what I was presenting. They were like kind of like, oh, like, is there more so and so associated with this than the alternative? I was talking about the differences between types of mountain bikes, which is something I'm into. And it was cool. It felt more like a conversation.
Yeah. And did you find yourself giving more information? Did you find yourself enjoying it and connecting more with the person, Ed?
Yeah, I sure did. When he asked me particularly, he was like, is there more maintenance associated with a full suspension mountain bike? And I was like, yeah, especially because you have two suspension like elements in it. And then I kind of expanded upon that. I was like, and if you have an air suspension mountain bike, sometimes you gotta like every once in a while reinflate, if you want to call it that, the suspension forks.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Ed. And I want to hear from someone else as well. Kevin, how was it for you?
So I was a listener, and my A person was talking about cricket. And it's a sport that's an interesting sport and has a lot of different rules. And this time I listened and I actually heard more of what he had originally said about the different types and play of different versions of cricket. So it was quite informational and educational for me.
Beautiful. And it's fascinating. That's what I would call a learner mindset, as opposed, somebody that's open to listening. You learn something new, as opposed to being a knower, or even as opposed to going, I don't like cricket and I'm not interested. That's often the case as well. We immediately filter out what we don't want to hear. So you learned something new. It was interesting. And again, as Ed was pointing out, you feel more connected to the person, and they shared a lot more. One more. I want to hear from one more person, either an A or a B. How was that?
I can go.
Thanks, Bernice.
All right. So I was the listener, and I would say that the second time that I learned more of what the person was really wanting to do, right? She had talked about it, and the first time was more about I like to rearrange things and do design, but I didn't hear much of it because I was playing with my dog or doing something else. And the second time I understood better that, this is something that Amy likes to do that relieves stress, and it's great to, organize things and how it's something that she wants to do, and maybe when she retires, like all of that information I learned the second time because I listened to it.
Yes, yes. And who were you partnered with, Bernice? Was it the same person at both
Yes.
times?
Yes.
Beautiful. That was lucky. Who was that?
You're on Ime?
Yes, I'm here. It was me, Ime.
Yeah, Ime. So
I told her she should come to my house. I need somebody to help me organize stuff. So that would be
cool.
awesome.
Thank you, Bernice. Ime, you're the last person I want to hear from. And did you find yourself sharing more information second time around?
Yes, I did share more information because she was not distracted or anything. But the first time, it didn't really bother me so much because just from my perspective, the world we live in now, we're always busy doing one thing or the other. So it's like a two-way thing. She's doing something, I could be doing something. So for me, if someone is distracted, because I have a very busy life, it doesn't bother me that much.
Wow. Well, and thank you for saying that, because we have become so used to this. We have become so familiar and, if you like, comfortable with people being distracted. You know, uh, a really interesting study that was released last year by Gloria Mark in the book Attention Span. Our attention span has dropped from around 3 minutes to 44 seconds. And it's much lower for teenagers and college students, even from 18 to 20 seconds. So we are becoming so used to this. And, it's becoming part of our society that when somebody actually does pay attention, when somebody is, and it's an attention crisis that we're facing. We're spending 20 years ago, we used to spend 30% of our day at our desk. Now we're spending 90% of our day at our desk on average. And this is all very clearly charted and researched. When you're sedentary, you are not operating at your best. The body needs to move, and its body affects the emotions affect the mind, your clarity, your job, all of this. And so what Amy is sharing, I'm sorry if I butchered your name there, Amy. So what you're sharing is that we are just used to this now. Our kids are learning this way of communicating as well. It's in bite sizes. And so we're not actually able to hold good conversations, create connections, create trust. How many conversations do we just glide over and glide by every day? We think the power is in the speaking, but really, if you're looking as a leader or a teammate, your job is to influence action. Your job is to influence, you know, behaviors, shared behaviors that actually lead to results. Think about it. You don't suddenly switch on your listening from what your normal process is for your clients. You think that we will suddenly shift up to a higher amp for our listening. No, we become almost habituated in how we listen. And so I really do offer you this to start to practice this over the next week. And I just want to give you a few pointers in this so that you can start to see listening has an impact. It has an impact on the level of which you can influence action. And whether you own a company, whether you're a leader of a company, whether you're a leader of a team, whether you're a leader of a family, your only job is to influence action. And you can see that the level of our listening, it became very apparent when you were distracted that it was awkward. And yet we're doing this every single day in probably the majority of conversations. So self-awareness is 80% of the journey. Realizing that I know I've got a blind spot around this and I can do something about it. Start to take this on, because as you move over, you could see, from Bernice's comments, she learned so much more. From Kevin's comments, he learned so much more. People were sharing more. We hold listening in low regard. We think the power is in speaking, whereas really we have to provide the vacuum for people to share and speak into. So when we're good listeners and practicing listening generously, people share more, you feel more connected, you feel heard, because it's a double whammy. Your staff and the people on your team aren't feeling heard. And so they're not even willing to share anymore because nobody's listening. And you're not only missing the benefit of what they're going to share, it leads to miscommunications. It leads to upsets. It leads to people taking away the wrong message out of the meeting because they've been listening with one ear and the other one has been somewhere else. So we all know this, and we all keep going and doing the same thing and practicing the same thing. So some of the gems to think about it is, one, you've got to be deliberate and pay attention. Paying attention, we are wired for novelty and distraction. To pay attention is no small thing in an attention crisis. We are an attention economy. We're not in a knowledge economy anymore. It's attention. Every social media channel is after your attention. And we're giving it away for free, and they're charging us a fee for it. And so start to notice where you're getting distracted and choose to come back into the conversation. You can only have one conversation at a time. It's not something that you can have two conversations going at once. We all know we have limited ability to do that. The second thing, and Jurgen brought this up, notice your filters. Notice your filters. So we all operate with filters. Now, you might call it bias, you might call it some precondition or something that's in the way, but you are listening through a filter for that person, for that team, for that, organization. And you'll not just remove it by thinking, oh, I'm going to just get rid of that filter. No, we all have filters. We have a filter depending on our mood. We have a filter depending on the circumstances. We have a filter depending on how they look, how they, what happened 3 years ago. We have a filter about that. We operate in a world of filters. And the fascinating thing is we are so used to it. You've got filters. So I really encourage you over the next few days to notice your filters, write them down. Maybe my filter as a software engineer is like, I can fix it. So I'm listening for, I can fix it. Or maybe I've got a filter, I'm busy. So go ahead, talk away, I'm busy. You're putting that filter in your way. Or maybe you have a filter for someone, they're stupid. Okay, stupid, go ahead. Or they're a complainer. Whatever it is, look down this list and see which one of these have you got a filter? Because we are always listening through filters, and there's often an element of truth in it. There's often some past experience in it, but just notice where I'm holding a filter for another person in my organization or team. You have a filter for your kids, you have a filter for your wife, you have a filter for your mother-in-law, you have a filter for everybody. And sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's not. And so start to be aware of your filters because it's not helping you hear what they're truly saying. And that brings me to the next point. Listen with curiosity. That learner mindset that Kevin brought up there. He learned about cricket this evening. If he was shutting that down and I know everything about cricket, then people will stop sharing. Remember, we hold listening in low regard, and yet it has the biggest impact on what people share. If you bring greater curiosity into your conversations with a willingness to be influenced, it's very difficult to be influenced. It doesn't mean you will actually agree with them, but if you're willing to be influenced, you have got an opportunity, to learn something new, to see an alternative, creative way of doing something. If you've got a strong filter for somebody where what would they know? They're only new in the organization. Then they have no, what have they got to offer? So, this is really important. The last thing I want to really highlight as a hidden gem is to listen for the value or contribution in what they're saying. Every single person in your organization is looking to contribute value. We seldom operate in a world where we are not doing something that we think is right in that moment. Based on what we have been told or appreciated or heard or done in the past. So bringing greater curiosity might be like, oh, help me understand why you did that way. Give them the benefit of the doubt and listen for what was the contribution they were looking to create? Because everybody is looking to contribute something. And you got to get into their shoes, not look at it from your shoes. And that's where we get into deep listening practice. So, to close, I want to just invite you to write down one change you will make in your conversation starting today. How can you specifically improve your own listening? I've only talked about listening this evening. I love this quote by George Bernard Shaw. The single biggest problem in communications is the illusion that it's taking place. So just take out a pen and paper and write down one change that you are willing, that you will actually make. And I'd love to see a couple of in the chat what you do see from this exercise this evening. Be more present in the moment. Understand that it's not always about me. That's a beautiful one. Notice your filter. Beautiful. Your biasness, your filters. Absolutely. Great. Okay. Thank you very much for that message, Stephen. Appreciate that. Understand the bias. Remember, your greatest gift is the greatest act of compassion to be able to offer listening to each other. Some leaders think, oh, that'll slow me down. But it actually doesn't. It's slowing down to speed up. When we get into conversations and we're asking for commitments and promises and expectations and agreements, we often go fast. And how often have you felt you said something and what they heard, they did something different? Because what they heard was what they acted upon, not what you said. Anybody had that experience? Absolutely. Because it's not about what you say. That's why the power is not in the speaking. It's more important, what did they hear? So slowing down to speed up, it leads to mutual respect, mutual understanding. It helps us actually make sure that we are clear about what we're committing to. Commitments, we live in a world of commitments, in a network of commitments to each other all the time. That's how we move things into action in our organizations. And commitments come down to how we're listening and how we're speaking. And we're often overestimating our speaking and underestimating the power of our listening. We also overestimate our own ability. So my invitation is for you to be humble with this and go, how can I learn to be an exceptional listener? And there's some great comments, recognizing and self-correcting when I'm just waiting to speak. Absolutely. There's a filter for you there, Stephen. We're preloading our answers as we're listening. Therefore, we're not listening. It's something embracing the generosity of what this person's sharing, looking for the value. Again, you can see when you were generously listened to this evening, where you got to share something, that had an impact on you. That has an impact on each one of us. Our hearts and minds go where we're appreciated. And when you start to listen with greater depth and presence, and notice when you're distracted and bring yourself back into the conversation, then you're taking responsibility for your listening. How big an impact has that got on your culture? Where you're now sharing that behavior with other people. What if we could start to work in a way where when we speak, we actually listen. We listen to each other to get the value, not to blame and complain. It's to get the value. This is about creating psychological safety as well. And so there is so much just in this one practice. And thank you for all the many comments. My colleague Philip, who's on the call this evening, is one of the authors of this book. It's a fantastic little book if you want to jump on Amazon to get it, or on the Collaborative Way website as well. Jump on, you'll read it in 20 minutes. It will change your whole leadership ability if you just focus on those, 30 pages. I guarantee it. And, we also have an e-learning platform for those that want to take and learn an intentional practice to make this real in their own lives. It takes deliberate practice and a proven framework. And so, if you have any questions after this evening, and please reach out to me on either LinkedIn. Matt and Ken have my details as well. I'd love to support you and your organization if you want to take this further. If you've got questions, reach out to me, and jump on our website, which is collaborativeway.com. If you want to watch some other videos, it's down to, this is common sense, but it is not common practice. It takes deliberate practice to do this. And, we're sloppy with our listening, dare I say, stingy with our listening, because it takes effort. It takes effort to listen to someone and get out of our own way, to put aside our filters. So, Ken, do we have time for any questions? I'm respectful of your time, so I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We have like maybe one question.
I know Jürgen, I hope I answered your question, Jürgen. Jürgen was asking about where we're selective listening, looking or listening for a particular thing in a conversation. Maybe this is a good point to finish on. We are often listening just for what's relevant to us. And again, that's a filter where we're listening for particular facts or what I need to do. And so we're missing out on everything else. So it's very much it's attentive, but it's very selective. And so you're missing all the valuable stuff in
I just
between.
want to say, I'm sorry, I just want to say one thing about me personally at work. And probably a lot of people feel the same way, is that we don't meet people in the office anymore. There are people at work in my office that I don't see, even though we're both in the office. Everybody wants to be more efficient, so they do Zoom calls while they're in the office. So that way, they don't have to leave their desk. They can just continue to do what they were doing and have the conversation. And that ruins. I think COVID really broke that whole thing,
Yeah.
and people are just used to doing this now. It's so ridiculous.
And even when people are back in the office, Ken, it's still easier. We are bombarding each other with emails and just
Yeah,
messages.
you're right. Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
so it's an overwhelm, and it's also, to start to work on how to practice paying attention. That's that's a great practice to notice yourself getting distracted. And if you're in a meeting and you miss something, you can call it out and go, sorry, I got distracted. That's actually more respectful. People think, oh, it's disrespectful, but knowing that all of us are checking out constantly, and it's becoming more and more, difficult to hold people's attention. So that's why the media is like the way that we're watching movies, clickbait, everything is becoming shorter and shorter. And so we are gradually wearing down that skill set of paying attention. Ken, that's why we're 90% at our desk now, rather than we used to go down and have a meeting down the corridor.
Yeah,
And
I know, I know.
it
Anyway,
takes real
yeah.
effort to do this, and I really encourage you to take listening seriously. It's going to impact your leadership ability and your leadership style, and also how your team show up. Remember, culture is down to the conversations you're having. That will reveal your culture right now. And so if you want to impact conversations, tune up your listening, start to be humble about that, and catch your filters where you're only listening for what's interesting for you, and realize it's having an impact all the time. Listening is not passive. It takes practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Declan. We'll be